Okay, so I think we are already live. Yeah. So, namaste and welcome to the realm of Damru. At Damru Yoga and Sound Therapy Studio, it is our constant endeavor to bring about integrative wellness practices through authentic traditions of yoga and nada. Bilva is our annual yoga festival where we invite experts and scholars from various indigenous wellness traditions. This year, our theme for Bilva is Bharatiya Parampara, rebuilding modern India upon the strong foundations of Sanatan Dharma. Live in this series today, we are very fortunate to have with us Dr. Sampadanand Mishra. Welcome, sir. And he will enlighten us today on the topic of Supraja Jananam, the ancient wisdom of conscious conception and pregnancy. But before we delve into the topic, let me tell you a little more about Dr. Mishra. Sampadananji is a passionate lover of Sanskrit and has spoken at various conferences, seminars, literary and religious festivals, nationally as well as internationally on Sanskrit, Indian literature, yoga, and education. He has been awarded the 2018 Kendra Sahitya Akademi Children's Literature Award for his book called Shanaihi Shanaihi. The Government of India has conferred the President's Award, Maharshi Badarayana Vyasa Sammana 2011, on Dr. Mishra for his outstanding contribution on Sanskrit. In year 2014, the Ministry of Culture, Government of India conferred the Senior Fellowship Award to Dr. Mishra for carrying out his research on the Vedic art of multiple concentration. Again in 2014, Dr. Mishra founded Samskrita Bala Sahitya Parishad with the aim of creating, evaluating, and propagating children's literature in Sanskrit. Dr. Mishra also launched world's first 24-hour Sanskrit radio, Divya Vani, on 15th of August 2013. The radio has a wide reach all over the world in more than 160 countries. His recent TEDx lecture on the topic, Is Sanskrit an Ancient Indian Language Still Relevant? Has been received very well and has got over 70,000 views. Dr. Mishra has been into research on prenatal education and its propagation for about 2 decades now. He has conducted several workshops, seminars, and short term courses on different aspects of prenatal education. So I'm very, very happy to have him over to do this live on such an important topic. I myself, being a pre and postnatal care educator for more than 8 years now, I've experienced the deep impact of an that an unborn child has uh, of its own parents and especially the mother. So, Suprajajananam, our today's topic, is an ancient practice of preparing couples physically, mentally, and spiritually to start a healthy family. We believe that pregnancy is not a matter of chance but choice. Couples need to prepare themselves to ensure a healthier and wiser baby. This topic being very close to my heart, when I met Sampadananji to learn more about what our ancient Shastras have taught us on these lines, I think we instantly connected, and that mutual respect that we hold for each other has led to today's talk, and I feel so privileged to have him here. And with this, I'll just hand over the session to Dr. Mishra. Namaste, sir, and welcome again. Welcome to the realm of Damru.
Thank you, Mauli. So, namaskar to all of you. This topic, Supraja Jananam, or creating a conscious population, has been my domain for last 2 decades. Though this whole aspect of Supraja Jananam is dealt by several people in several ways. So a psychologist looks at this topic from a purely psychological point of view. A prenatal educator looks at the topic from a different view. The nutritionists, they look at it from a different view. Pediatricians, they look at it in a different view. So the medical practitioners, gynecologists, and others, they look at the topic from a purely medical point of view. And in the name of prenatal education, there are several activities, several seminars, several workshops, and several talks, several training programs which are conducted everywhere or in most places. But my approach here is a spiritual approach. What is the spiritual dimension of childbirth? The whole idea is about creating a conscious population, not an unwanted population. If we look at the whole world, how the children are born, how the childbirth takes place, we will find out, and this is what is our experience, that we see that maximum number of children are born or the human birth takes place in a very mechanical way. It's just accidental. There is no conscious process involved in it. So it just happened. If you ask the couples or whoever have given birth to a child or is someone who is conceived, all on a sudden one knows that okay, I'm going to become a mom, I'm going to become a dad. But if we look at the ancient Indian vision or the insights from the seers and sages, the insights of the spiritual masters, not just in Indian tradition, in the mystic traditions everywhere. So every civilization, every culture, every tradition had something deeper about the childbirth. But in India, it has been given a methodized process. It has been organized in a very methodical manner and experimented, and the results have been seen. That whether one turns to the Vedas, Upanishads, or the Dharma Sutras, Dharma Shastras, one turns to even the local tradition, that one finds enormous amount of materials to change this whole process from a mechanical process to a conscious process. As per the vision of the seers and sages, a child must be a child must be the result not of mere conjugal enjoyment but of intense prayers and aspirations. And today, if we look at, see, in a month, I myself get at least 10 to 15 requests that uh, we are going to have a child, so we're looking for some good Sanskrit names. So before I give them name or suggest certain names for the babies, so I ask the person who has sent the request, what has been your aspiration of both of you? And believe me, most of them, they say that we don't know what are you talking about, like what is, we have never thought about it, but we want to give a name. So there also, like I explained them this, that if you want to give a name, you should not use the philosophy of naming here to any object or any inert or conscious object or any conscious being or any object that we give a name. There is a philosophy behind it. So the object must, the name by which we call an object or by which we call someone or we refer to someone, that person or that object must carry the root sense of that name, must be conscious of what truth lies behind that name. So, therefore, it is necessary before naming that one should know what is the aspiration of the parents. This is the case everywhere, that we want to give birth to children, we want to bring someone to the world, but we don't know how to bring or how to manifest a soul into a body. The giving birth to children, being pregnant or becoming a mother or father is not something which should happen in a very mechanical way. That has been our insights, that has been the tradition here. But what we see at present is a very, very different story. So therefore, like someone goes to Swami Vivekananda, and then he says that my child is now 5 years old, and then I want to see my child as bright as you, as brilliant as you. So uh, then Swamiji said that, like you were coming maybe 10 years late to me. He said, but my child is just 5 years. So why are you talking about 10 years old? Now, what he is pointing out is very true, that preparation for bringing a child into the world must begin much before the child is born, much before even the conception. So when a girl child is getting her first menses, so it is, like that is the first day to be celebrated, because there is a great responsibility on the girl to become a mother. So the whole preparation must begin from there. So that is why there are so many rituals, so many, functions connected with this happening, this event. So it is not that to instill in a girl child that, like from today we are making you conscious that you are going to be a mother. No, but how that whole process of maintaining good health, maintaining the well-being, that has to be well taken care of. So that is why the menstrual health and hygiene, not just from a medical point of view, but from a consciousness point of view, like even though it is just a biological process, but it should not be treated as a mere biological process, but there are a lot of other deeper aspects which are related to this happening, which one needs to take care of. So therefore, the tradition, in the Indian tradition, we find this whole idea of brahmacharya. Now brahmacharya is not something which has to be maintained only by unmarried boys and girls. Brahmacharya is something which has to continue with every human being from like till the last breath. So if that discipline is followed both by the boys and the girls, the discipline of a brahmacharya. Today we have our very highly sophisticated educational institutes, educational organizations, universities. You have so many, plenty, very sophisticated, very expensive education. So what do we get in the name of this expensive education? What kind of personalities come out from those educational institutes? They are weak emotionally, they're weak psychologically, they're weak physically, they have no idea about how to manage life. And by the time they have certain idea, they have already spoiled the life by following many wrong habits, many wrong ways of living. So that is where we need to bring back the essence. What was the most beautiful, most powerful, most useful, most universal elements? What could create strong personalities? So those elements we need to bring from the past, from the tradition, and then map it into the present system of education. So it has to be harmoniously mapped without compromising the present Yuga Dharma. The whole idea is not just we become the past or just blindly follow the past, but we take the glow from the past, we take the inspiration from the past, we take the insights from the past and assimilate it in a very harmonious manner to the present system. So then it fits into the present system, it strengthens the present system of education, and then one grows strongly by following this discipline. Because this discipline is missing, so we have so many problems, so much of crisis that we see around, and so much of distortion, so much of ugliness that we see around the world. Now, when we're talking about in the context of the childbirth, what impact this discipline will have on the childbirth? The first thing one has to remember that the child, the way the childbirth takes place, the way children are born, it it can be equated to the ways the rabbits, the horses, the cats and dogs give birth to the children, their babies. It should not be a mechanical process at all. So it's like all that the human being does also is done by the animals. They also sleep, they also eat, they also enjoy the life, they also beget babies, they also reproduce. So what makes the difference between the animals and the human beings? Dharmo hi tesham adhiko vishesha. So it is that dharma. What is the dharma of the human being? Because human being is a conscious being. To get the human birth is something very very rare. If we look at the whole evolutionary journey, the whole evolution of the world, evolution, the history of the growth and development of this entire creation, there we find that naratvam durlabham loke. To get the human birth is something very, very rare. Yet, in the evolutionary context, human being is not yet the final, but at present is the highest. So there can be further higher evolutionary beings which can be greater, higher than the present human beings. But to make that happen, the present humanity must prepare itself to create that environment, to invoke that force, light, truth from above, so then that higher consciousness can work out, creating this adhara. Now, there are, from a deeper spiritual perspective, there are many high spirited souls, many higher souls, many evolved souls, those who are free from the bondages of the cycle of birth and death. So they are waiting to manifest, waiting to be born on this earth to deliver the humanity. This is how the avatars, the vibhutis, the rishis, they appear on the world. And they will appear only when they find the right environment, the right parents. So this is how a Krishna was born to Vasudeva and Devaki. This is how Bhagavan Rama was born to in Ayodhya. This is where we find lots of avatars and vibhutis are born. Why just to take the stories of the avatars, take the stories of the present day great personalities. Think of APJ Abdul Kalam ji. Think of many great personalities who have made a difference to the world, not just in India but outside India also. There will be definitely a story behind the aspiration for bringing such souls onto the earth by the parents plays a very important role in doing that. So this is where we have heard the stories of like how Ashtavakra was born, how Prahlada was born, how Dhruva was born, how Abhimanyu, the whole story of Abhimanyu, how he could get the art of knowing or managing the Chakravyuha. And then also we are familiar with the story how he couldn't manage because the whole story couldn't be given to him. That is what when Krishna was telling Arjuna that look, who will manage the Chakravyuha is don't think of because you have to you know it, I know it. So but we have to fight at some other places. But who will go is Abhimanyu. There the question comes like how did Abhimanyu know about Chakravyuha? He says that when this was revealed, so Subhadra was listening to story and she was carrying Abhimanyu inside the womb. And but because it was very highly technical, she could not, she fell asleep. She couldn't listen to the whole story. So that is how Abhimanyu knew the art of managing fighting inside, but didn't know how to come out or how to get the final victory. We know the story of Ashtavakra, like how he was listening of Sujata, Ashtavakra's mother. So while carrying Ashtavakra, she was listening to the Vedic chants which were uh, performed by Sujata's husband or Ashtavakra's father, Kahuda Muni, every day because Kahuda Muni was one of the greatest Vedic teachers. And Sujata used to sit when he was taking class. And the story thus happened that if when on one day maybe Kahuda Muni was not in his right consciousness or that awareness, there was some lapse in the awareness, so he could commit 8 mistakes while chanting, and Sujata could feel 8 times some kind of disturbances or some kind of trouble, difficulties she could feel. And then when she informed about it to Kahuda Muni, So the Kahodamani had little anger, and then out of anger, he cursed that if this baby who is not yet born and from his mother's womb he is trying to find my mistakes, then let him be born with, because he found out eight mistakes, let him be born with eight deformities. So this is how Ashtavakra. So he was born, the baby was born with eight deformities on his body. Of course, Kahodamuni repented afterwards because of his anger, and the whole story goes that by the power of tapas, again, when Kahodamuni saw his own child, he could bring back him to a normal, very handsome young boy. So that also is possible by the power of by yogic power. So all these stories, those seem to be, you know, by some people or outwardly some kind of fanciful stories, but it has always been confirmed by many masters. It has been confirmed even by science. Like if a mother wants, if the mother and father they want to bring a particular child, a child of a particular with particular qualities, it is always possible that they can give birth to a child of their choice. It all depends upon the consciousness, what kind of the destiny of the child, what kind of child will be born. It much depends upon the consciousness of the parents during or at that moment of conception. So that is what decides that very moment of conception when the conception took place. So in what consciousness, in what awareness the parents were there, and that is one of the greatest reasons of why many different, children of say very different qualities are born to the same parents. Like if a couple has say two children or three children, all the three are different. it, that is one of the greatest reasons that what was the mind, what was the thought, what was the awareness, what was their consciousness during that conception. But if they wanted to bring out higher beings like Madalasa did. The story of Madalasa is a very famous story. So when she wanted to bring out the children, she kept singing this Shuddhosi, Buddhosi, Niranjanosi, Sansara Maya Parivarjitosi. So this is how the children who are born to Madalasa, so right from the big, from their early childhood, they could develop a kind of ascetic attitude towards the world because they were constantly said that you are that, you are that, you are that. But ultimately, Madalasa's husband requested that at least the fourth child don't do that with that child because someone has to take care of the whole kingdom. So let him be not, a vimukha towards develop any ascetic attitude towards the world, towards ruling the kingdom and towards the worldly life. Madalasa did that, but at the same time, in a very different way. She kept on whispering into the ear of that unborn fetus, unborn child, that how he should rule the kingdom by doing only good to the world. So this is where a king, a future king is born, is being prepared. And we have heard so many stories, the stories of say Vishwanath Anand, the greatest chess player. So it is that because of Vishwanath Anand's mother, or Vishwanath Anand could born. So she used to play chess with Vishwanath Anand when she was carrying him inside. And it is all possible. It is all that we have seen. It is all that the science also proves that yes, how the unborn fetus is highly receptive to the thoughts and emotions, even the physical environment in which the mother lives. Now, a true maternity doesn't mean that a woman has given birth to a child and has become mother. A true maternity means like how a soul has been invoked, has been brought to this world for doing good to the world. What kind of soul a woman brings or shapes, the shaping is very much necessary. This is where lies the most important role of the mother, that how does she shape. That is why she is called the Janani, not just Janani. Janani is that one who gives birth. She is not just Janani, she is also Mata. Mata means like one who gives a measures. Ma, the root sound ma means to measure. But what does she measure? She measures the immeasurable. This is what we learn from the tradition, from the system of yoga, from our philosophy, from the vision of the seers and sages, that this entire creation is the manifestation of the infinite, manifestation of that supreme reality in his finite form. But that infinite, that immeasurable, to become measured, to become finite, to take a particular form or particular shape, there has to be a mechanism, and that mechanism at a cosmic level is called Maya. It is a limiting mechanism through which that infinite, that immeasurable, that indivisible becomes divided, becomes measured, becomes finite. At an individual level, when a mother gives birth, so she is actually giving shape and giving a finite shape, finite form to the infinite. Verily, we all are infinite at the essential level. So that is why she is called Mata, because she measures, she gives a finite shape to the infinite. If this is the sense one carries while giving birth, much of our problems, what we face in the society by the human, will be controlled, will be changed. This is how a new generation can be, a new world can be brought forth. A conscious humanity can be created, a conscious population can be created. The whole idea is not just to give birth to a child, but manifesting a soul who is infinite, who is immeasurable, who is invincible, who is indivisible at his essential level. So that is how the super souls manifest on this earth to do good to the world. The super souls, they, their whole purpose is sarva bhuta hite rata. Their rata, they're engaged. Their entire life is dedicated for doing good to the world. This is where lies the role and responsibilities of the parents, that how they can bring a good soul into the world. And some people may think, may believe that is it possible truly? There should not be any iota of doubt about this. There have been many proven facts, many proven examples that how this becomes possible. One turns to Ayurveda, one turns to the Shastras, one turns to the teachings by many spiritual masters, one gets lots of insights into the understanding, deeper understanding of this childbirth. So it is not the shastras not just speak about once the conception takes place. Now whole of the medical science, if you look at how they divide that period, the antenatal and the postnatal period. But here the whole process doesn't begin with the conception. The process has to begin much before the child is born. There is a phase of preparation before conception. It should not be an accidental conception, but a conscious conception, willed conception, conscious, willed conception. And for that, the preparation is necessary. How do a couple prepare themselves? Invoke the divine power, the divine light, the divine truth for manifesting that soul into the world, bringing a child into the world. So this whole and also like when we go to say Aitareya Upanishad, it doesn't just say, the tradition here doesn't say that it is the mother who conceives the child. It goes further deep into the matter and then says that it is the father who conceives the child first and then transmits it to the mother, transfers it to the mother, because biologically that is how it is possible. So then the mother can hold it and then manifest it. So the child, in this sense, is an extension of the consciousness of both father and the mother. Because the father and mother, there is also a deeper understanding of this relationship between a man and woman. This deeper understanding of man and woman relationship is also necessary when couples get married, when a man or woman they come together in marriage. So marriage is not just a social responsibility to get some license to enjoy a conjugal life, as it happens in most cases. Get married and enjoy life. The purpose of marriage is not that. The purpose of marriage is that two beings they come together, to opposite beings, to opposite sexes. They come to help each other in giving fulfillment to each other. There are greater insights like why this marriage takes place. Is it merely two physical beings coming together, or is there a greater purpose? The greater purpose is that this whole creation is created and sustained by these two tattvas, the Agni and Soma tattva. The Agni tattva and Soma tattva, ultimately there has to be a reconciliation, merging of this Agni and Soma. And both the man and woman, they carry both the tattvas within themselves. The man outwardly is fiery or Agni, but at the substance level, at the essential level, the man's substance is cool. A woman's outer personality is cool, but the substance is fiery, Agni. When a man and woman they come together, they take a promise. They make a promise to each other that I come in your life to raise your Agni Tattva. The man says to the woman to raise your Agni Tattva to merge with the Soma Tattva. And same way, the woman also makes a promise to the man by putting a tilak on his head that I'll raise your Soma Tattva and merge with the Agni Tattva. In a yogic way, this merging of Agni and Soma Tattva can also happen without the physical presence of without the physical involvement of man and woman. So therefore, in our tradition, we see that the creation of the Manasa Putras. So in a yogic process of being can manifest, one can create, and we have a lot of stories about the how the Manasa Putras are created, and it is possible because it is ultimately this Agni and Soma Tattva, merging of Agni and Soma Tattva, which has the power to create. So here, the man and woman they come together not just to make a family, not just to live happily and enjoy life, but there is a great responsibility of preparing the kshetra, preparing the adhara where the great souls can manifest. These great souls manifesting on the world can help the whole evolutionary process, can help the world, can liberate the world, can help the world by liberating itself from its many limitations because they have the power and they know how to do it. So, on one side, we find that a mother is called Mata, but a child is called the Santana. The Santana in its literal sense means extension. So that is why I mentioned a little before that the child is not just a product because of some mixing and matching, some product has taken place, something has been created. But the child is an extension of the consciousness of the man and woman. So that is where at a conscious level, a consciousness level, both in so marriage means like it is the marriage of that two two entities, they become one. That one man, one mind, one heart, one consciousness in two bodies. And the child is the extension of that consciousness. So what level of harmony has to be maintained by a man and woman when they get married and when they want to bring a child can be understood from this. If there is no harmony, if man and woman they are not living harmoniously, there is much difference, then the child who will be born from them cannot carry that harmony or cannot carry the real purpose of begetting a child will not be solved by those couples. That is why the present humanity keeps facing so much of crisis. So the child has to be, therefore, the child has to be the result of intense prayers and aspiration. And the preparation has to be much before the child is born. Every aspect, every act related to the childbirth must be a conscious act, not a mechanical, robotic, habitual act. Therefore, in the tradition, for at each step, a particular ritual is enjoined. And the purpose of ritual is not that a Brahmin comes, a Pandit comes and does the puja, man and woman they sit unhesitatingly because it has to be done, and then the Pandit does the puja and then disappears with his, he goes with his remuneration and everything, and then we are satisfied that we have performed, we have completed the ritual. The rituals have become the true mechanical rituals, but the purpose of ritual was to perform every act because it is that activity which makes us conscious of that greater purpose, the greater purpose of life. While living, whether one is married or not married, Everyone must live by being conscious of the very purpose of life and must organize life's activities around this central aspiration. And when two aspiring beings harmoniously meet together and start living together, the extension of their consciousness will make a difference to the world. And once the child is conceived, what does what should one do during that conception? It is a twofold education which comes to play its role. An education which is for the mother or for the parents, and most importantly for the mother, because physically the child is connected deeply with the mother. She is shaping the child. So therefore the education is of the mother. Every breath, every thought vibration, every emotion, anything that happens to the mother, the child receives it. It has an impact on the child, tremendous impact on the child. And if a mother wants to shape the child in a particular manner, can shape it. You want that my child should behave in this particular manner, should look like this, should develop, should be born with these qualities, then practice those qualities within yourself. It is said the instruction from the Shastras, from the teachings of the masters, that no negative vibration should be allowed even for a moment during this period when a woman is carrying the baby in the womb. And it's a very fascinating moment and very important moment for the woman, because woman in that stage also, like, looks at the creator and then has a smile that, see, you are the creator, I am also a creator, because she takes that position, takes that status of creating something. She feels that she carries two bodies within one body, her own body and the body of the child. She has two hearts beating within one body. That is why the woman, a pregnant woman, is called Dauhruda, the woman with two hearts. The two hearts are beating in the same body. The experience is very, very different for a woman who is carrying the baby. But if every woman, every woman who has conceived, or every woman who is aspiring to have a child, because matrutva, maternity, is a very important aspect in a woman's life. But how that matrutva has to be true matrutva or maternity, so one has to take much care, because every thought, every emotion, anything, every movement of the consciousness has a lasting impact on the child. The true education of a child happens during these 9 months or 10 months. Afterwards, whatever we give is to strengthen this education. Nothing can be undone later. But if one wants to undo something, it takes much time or much effort. Because we are expected not just to give birth to a child with a human body, but what is expected, as the Vedas say, Janaya Divyam Janam, create a divine population, bring a divine being and manifest in this world and in a divine way. So, therefore, during this period, so how to remain perfect, happy, joyful, peaceful at the physical level, at the vital, emotional, sensational level, at the mental level, and invoke that spiritual light and that spiritual force. This is the most important task that one has to follow. And for that, there are many individuals and organizations who have come forward to help the humanity to create this conscious humanity. There are lots of organizations who are working towards it, lots of individuals who are working towards it, different therapists, yoga masters, because everything has a role to play. What impact the music can have on the child, so there the music therapy can play a role, because music has a tremendous impact on the child's growth. You go to Charaka, you go to Sushruta, you go to Bhagbhatta, all the acharyas, Ayurveda acharyas have confirmed that what impact it has. The music, the sound, the pure sound, the mantras, they have the impact on the child. So the programs have been created, modules have been prepared to what kind of sound therapy or mantra therapy or the music therapy that one can follow during this pattern if one is more prone to the music, to the sound. There also nothing should be imposed on the woman. The woman should feel, look at her own temperament. Some may be very much interested in cooking, but during this time, though certain activities are limited, regulated, prohibited, so one has to follow that. But at the same time, one has to look at like what one wants to do, what kind of food one wants to eat. But the food also has to be of that quality which nourishes, because every sip of water or sip of liquid that goes into our body, our system, every gulp of food that goes inside has tremendous impact on our consciousness or different faculties of consciousness, on the physical, on the emotional, on the mental, psychological aspects. So that is why the choice of food also, that is why the tradition says that our food should be sattvic. So everything should be sattvic. Everything must have that element of sattva, that element of light, truth, that element of vastness, bhuma, that element of joy. So then it works accordingly, it prepares the consciousness accordingly, or it helps in the growth of the consciousness accordingly. So the food, the environment, there are different kinds of activities to educate every aspect of the human consciousness. So what are the activities that one should do during this 9 month period to support, to maintain the good physical, so then it is not affected by diseases, it is not affected by anything else which has an impact on the child. What kind of activities to we should adopt to purify or refine or to bring some sanskara at the emotional and sensational level, then a sanskari child is born with pure emotion, a strong emotion. What kind of activities that we should adopt to prepare the mind, so then we can prepare simultaneously the mind of the child, the mental being of the child, the mental consciousness of the child. Because when we are talking about the consciousness, so that supreme consciousness is concentrated, it is there in a very concentrated manner at each level. He is there in a very special concentrated manner in the physical, very concentrated special manner in the vital, in the mental. So one needs to grow aware of that, and that concentrated special positioning or special presence of that that supreme consciousness is nothing but the divine. So one needs to grow conscious of that divine element in every part of the being. then only what the rishis said, Janaya Divyam Janam, creating a divine personality, creating a divine population is possible. So, education doesn't begin after the child is born and at a certain age he is sent to the school. The real education happens much before the child is born, and especially during these 9-10 months a mother can prepare and start educating herself in a manner that the education also happens to the child. If a mother want, the mother of Sri Aurobindo Ashram has uh, written elaborately on this aspect. She has given the example of some particular ladies, how that particular lady, as for example, was able to manifest a child of a particular shape or of a particular quality. And there are many pertinent questions, many deeper questions with regard to this, like what about the psychic aspect? What about the spiritual aspect? What about the soul man? When does the soul come into the being? And then there are many deeper aspects that we can find. We find indeed in the teachings of the seers and sages and in the Shastras. But at a practical level, this education, the prenatal education, can happen looking at the different faculties of the consciousness, and special programs have been created by many people who are working during this, working towards this prenatal education for the different activities for the physical, different activities for the vital, emotional, and sensational being, different activities for the mental. So those need to be practiced. And all those who are planning for a child, have got married, they must find out such educators, not just childbirth educator, because today in the prenatal education or childbirth, what is happening mostly is certain medical aspects, how there will be easy childbirths. The whole concentration is on the easy delivery and maintaining a good health from a medical perspective, medical point of view. So easy delivery, then on certain importance on the physical well-being, and certain importance on the postnatal care. So it is more related to the care than education. But here, what is intended, what I want to convey through this session is that it should not be merely confined to certain care. It is not just prenatal care, but it is prenatal education. That is what is the true meaning of sanskara. When we turn to the tradition, we find different sanskaras, and maximum sanskaras are related to the childbirth. The Garbhadhana Sanskara, the Punsavana Sanskara, Simantunayana Sanskara, Namakarana Sanskara. So maximum sanskaras are related to the childbirth, the child's education. Simply because we have ridiculed the tradition, we have criticized the tradition, calling it unscientific, calling it superstition. Of course, I don't deny that there are no superstitions. I do not deny that. I do not also say that everything that is there in the traditional shastras has to be accepted or practiced blind. I always give importance that we should examine properly and take those elements and then assimilate in a manner which is conducive to the present Yuga Dharma. But we cannot completely ignore the tradition, because this is the tradition which created such a strong foundation. It is the tradition which could give birth to infinite number of rishis, avatars, vibhutis, who are responsible for creating this foundation, who are responsible for sustaining this civilization, this culture for so many thousands of years. And it is always possible that one can give birth to the divine souls, to the vibhutis, to the avatars, to the great souls through this education. That education is all about, it's a conscious process, it's a process by which we truly educate and help expanding the consciousness. Because the whole purpose of yoga, whole purpose of education is the expansion of consciousness, not to remain confined in the narrowness of the consciousness. And during this period of pregnancy, now if you look at the tradition, there are different kinds of shastras dealing with different aspects of this. You have Garbhopanishad, you have Bhagavata Puranam. In many Puranas, you'll find elements related to the childbirth. There is a scientific aspect to it where the whole embryology is explained. And if someone wants to map what has been given in the traditional Shastras in Garbhopanishad or in Bhagavata Puranam or in the Mahabharata, one can easily see, map it, and then find out that, oh, these are all scientifically true. What happens in every month? If you go to the Ayurveda, in especially these three Shastras and the Kashyapa Samhita, the three acharyas, Bhagavatta, Sushruta, Charaka, the daily regimen for the pregnant woman, and what kind of education should one should give, what kind of care one should take. We find plenty of materials in the Ayurveda. We find plenty of materials in other Puranas too. The Garbhopanishad is a very special text which deals with the destiny of the child, and also very scientifically it explains right from the moment of conception how the fetus grows to a matured child. So the developmental phase of the fetus at every phase is described there. Not only that, you know, how many bones, how many nerves, how many sinews, how much of flesh, blood, how much is the weight of the heart, how much is the weight of the tongue. All these measurements are given in the Garbhopanishad in a very scientific manner and without dissecting a human body. How they could enter into the very consciousness of this human body, and by the power of that consciousness, by the yogic power, enter into the body and then understand all these things without dissecting. There are scriptures. So on one side you have got these developmental phases, on the another side you have the ritualistic scriptures like the Gruhya Sutras, the Dharma Shastras, where the Garbhadhana Sanskara, etc., all the different sanskaras which are related, like what we should do in our life, where what we should do in connection to the childbirth, what kind of rituals, what to do when, what kind of food, what kind of, rules and regulations have to be followed, which food to be taken on which day. The astronomical and astrological texts also play a major role in contributing towards creating this conscious population. Then there are texts which completely deal with the whole vision behind it, where we turn to the Vedas, we turn to the Upanishads, we turn to the Gita, how the human life has to be lived, what is the purpose of human life, the whole vision, whole insight that we draw. So all these things one need to be explained. The whole program related to the prenatal education, it includes all these aspects from a deeper spiritual perspective. So with these words, I come to the end of my lecture, and if there are questions, then I will address the questions.
So,
Are, are there questions?
yeah,
Uh,
we'll just take a
we,
couple
we
of
need,
questions.
yeah.
Uh, so till the questions come in, I had one question in terms of for our audience. We talked a lot about mother and how her consciousness, her everything that she's feeling, thinking, doing affects profoundly to the baby or the unborn child. What would be the role of the spouse or the partner?
Okay.
So, yeah.
So if you turn to the Upanishad, it says sa bhavayitri bhavayitavya, that in this whole process the woman is not alone. It is not just the spouse, but all the members connected with the woman. They have great responsibilities in support, giving support, and in this matter of educating.
Okay.
Yes,
And like you told the story of Ashtavakra and Sujata and her husband. So in my practice, so I had certain women who come to me. They would say that the baby would invariably respond to their father whenever there is a conversation. And so sometimes it becomes that the baby is much more sensitive to the father even more than the mother. So I feel that would be a very harmonious bond between a couple that the child would respond.
yes. So that is why, I mentioned about what the Aitari Upanishad says, that it is the father who conceives, the child holds in his consciousness, and then transmits it to the mother for its physical manifestation.
Wow, wow, that's amazing. Okay, so if there are some questions we can take.
So, some Sundar Subramanian ji has asked that how do we learn further about this process and where can we get this education? There are plenty of organizations, plenty of individuals who have created their own organizations and then own prenatal education program where one can get in touch with them and then learn it. So what I am doing is that we have a website called mothersglow.in. Mothersglow.in. So there we have put plenty of materials. We conducted national and international seminars. So all the deliberations which happened with regard to the spiritual perspective, spiritual dimension of this childbirth or the conscious conception. So you can listen to many speakers coming from different background. So there is plenty of materials on this website, and which we keep updating also. So Mowli herself has certain program from the yoga point of view. So she also can be contacted for what kind of yogic education goes into this aspect. I can name few other. There is one Dr. Kalyani who has a Dhyan Baby Center. So she is a psychotherapist. She has been, working on this prenatal education for last 20 years. So her program also can be viewed, and then she also can be contacted to understand what is prenatal education, and then what kind of therapies help, what kind of program helps. So there is Manashakti organization. There are plenty of other organizations. If you make a internet search, that there are people who are solely concentrated on bringing this ritual to every home. There is the Children University in Ahmedabad, Gandhinagar, where they also deal with this prenatal education. So, plenty of organizations, plenty of materials, and I also would like to mention about Dr. Tushar Dasora from Jaipur. So, he has a very good program on Pretty Mom. So, both Dr. Tushar Dasora and his wife, they manage this whole thing. So I just mentioned few, and one can search and then find out plenty of other programs. And there are many books also are written on this, which one can follow.
Okay, so Sundar Subramaniam ji, if you are listening, the website that sir mentioned initially, his mothersglow.in, that is a treasure house of materials and knowledge about this. So please do visit that. One more question we have is that can you suggest three key things for the mother to keep in mind?
Yeah. Okay. So there can be many key things. So the you want just three key things that the mother or a woman who has got married and then wants to beget a child, she must be absolutely clear about the purpose of childbirth because she has a great responsibility. That whatever the case may be, because when we are dealing with the world, external world, we are living with other beings. There will be differences, there will be problems, there will be disharmony. So one of the most important, the first thing is that she has to be conscious and educate herself, like what is the purpose of life in general, the higher purpose, and in particular, what is the purpose of begetting a child, and then organize the life's activities around that central purpose. Point one. Point two, to maintain the harmony, not just the external harmony, but the internal harmony. She has to harmonize within herself, her body, mind, soul. For that, she has to adopt the different activities or perform such certain things during or even before the child is born, before the conception takes place. So then that harmony takes place within oneself, then that will be reflected in the external world. Then, once the conception takes place, she has to take utmost care in bringing this education to the child. So, what plan and program she will make, giving that education to herself, so then the child is educated before he is born, so that she has to take care. So, to be conscious of one's own purpose of life in general, and then purpose of getting giving birth to a child in particular, then maintaining the harmony. But before maintaining the external harmony, that internal harmonization is very much important, and then how to bring this education, so then a child, educated child, is born. So these are the three key points that I could mention.
Wow. So, what an enriching session. I just hope that a lot of young couples are hearing this out and they feel inspired to start working on themselves before they set on the journey of starting a family. I personally feel that to build a better, stronger, and wiser nation, we need to build a generation which is better, stronger, and wiser. So, a lot of things that Sampadananji mentioned today about the whole process of parenthood, motherhood, and fatherhood starts much, much before conception. The concept of brahmacharya, it is so important, because in what consciousness the parents are during the conception, it just decides the quality of the baby. And then the beautiful concept and the meaning of mata and santana, it's just amazing how you in just 1 hour covered so much. Especially fascinating parts of Garbhopanishad, where without even dissecting the human body, they could give in so much more details. So, yeah, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for sharing with us these valuable insights. And at the same time, I thank our audience who joined us today for this live session. Let this be a stepping stone towards a healthier you, a healthier baby, and therefore a healthier Bharat. So before I sign off today, I would like to announce to you all that this is a whole series of Bilwa Festival. It is going to go on for the whole month of July. Now that we're talking about conception and bringing about better, wiser children, the next topic is about teenagers and how our ancient knowledge systems can be utilized or in their application used for teenagers and to mold them in a healthier and a wiser way. So keep watching us for more details. Till then, namaskar from Mauli, from the realm of Damru, and once more, thank you
So,
so much.
yeah, before I sign off, so I would like to read out four lines from Sri Aurobindo's Savitri, and
Sure.
then in a little silence, then we will sign off. So Sri Aurobindo writes in his Savitri, the world was a conception and a birth. The world was a conception and a birth of the spirit in matter into living forms, and nature bore the immortal in her womb, that she might climb through him to eternal life. I repeat, the world was a conception and a birth of spirit in matter into living forms, and nature bore the immortal in her womb, that she might climb through him to eternal life. So these four lines speak a lot about the whole purpose of the birth and the purpose of the birth and what is the ultimate goal that humanity should achieve in a yogic, in a spiritual way. Dhanyavad.
Thank you so much, sir. That was a wonderful thing written by mother, right?
Sri Aurobindo.
Sri Aurobindo. Okay. Thank you, sir.